نفسي بنور من فؤادي حينما رددت يا رب العباد.
So the first session of the Fiqh of Ramadan is by Mufti Maryam. She was graduated from a traditional Darul Uloom, and she then enrolled at the JKN at the Takhassus Fiqh course at JKN Institute. She mashallah completed 3 years of her course. She's also completed a dissertation on the JKN for the as one of the criteria of completing the Takhassus fil Iftar course. Takhassus al-Iftar course. And now, alhamdulillah, since the graduation, she has been contributing to the Fatwa website and also onto the JKN Fatawa Sisters group. And now, as well as a traditional learning, alhamdulillah, Mufti Apa Maryam, she's also doing a degree in psychology and counseling. So alhamdulillah, she's doing a degree, and hopefully by that she's going to utilize her Islamic knowledge to in the realm of psychology and counseling. So alhamdulillah, that's something beneficial there. And then we have Mufti Sajeda, again, who is graduated from a traditional Darul Uloom, traditional madrasa. Again, I think she studied at Jamia, and she's now she has completed successfully her course at the Takhassus Iftar course at JKN Institute a few years ago. And alhamdulillah, since then she has been contributing to the Fatawas on JKN Fatawa department, as well as the Fatawa department website, as well as the JKN Sisters Fatwa group. And alhamdulillah, she's probably the senior of the Apas from here. She has been contributing for almost 3 to 5 years. All of her Fatawas, everything can be seen on her, are available on her on the JKN Fatawa website. So alhamdulillah, we warmly welcome the Apas to Apas as well, and we do hope that we all benefit from them. So if Muftiya Maryam, if you can kindly unmute your mic, and inshallah you will begin, and I'll be controlling the slides from behind. Once you've finished the slide, then just give me the indication, we'll begin. Okay, so Bismillah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope all you sisters are well, inshallah. And we'll be starting the first session by the meaning of fasting, rules that break and don't break the fast, and also moving on briefly to Qadha and Kaffarah and what necessitates both of them as well. So moving on to the first slide, please. So introduction, the meaning of fasting, kafara, penalty, and qadha, concessions around the permissibility to invalidate one's fast or to postpone the fast, the rules of Taraweeh Salah, which will then be covered by Apa Sajeda, some rules of itikaf, some common questions, and then finishing with a Q&A at the end, inshallah. Next slide, please. So what is the fiqh of fasting? So fiqh means a deep understanding of something with its correct application. The fiqh of fasting means understanding the legal rulings pertaining to fasting with its correct application. So around this subject of fiqh of fasting is understanding the basic rulings of fasting, what is permissible, what is not permissible, and what necessitates both qadha and kaffarah. So why study the fiqh of fasting? To ensure that our fast is valid and accepted by Allah. It is mandatory for the mukallif, legally commissioned person, so a person that is not, of understanding, is of age, to acquire knowledge of her faraid obligations, and helps us to understand the real meaning and correct manner of fasting. Next slide, please. Imam Qudur rahmatullahi has defined fasting as fasting is to refrain from eating, drinking, and intercourse during the day from the crack of dawn up till sunset with the intention made. So Imam Quduri is a Hanafi scholar, and he has defined the main meaning of fasting as to literally refrain from eating, drinking, and intercourse during the day from sunrise all the way till sunset, making an intention of fasting throughout the day as well. Next slide. Meaning of fasting. So a month of reconnecting with Allah and strengthening one's iman. So the meaning of fasting, Ramadan, is a month of bringing yourself back to Allah throughout the whole 11 months, excluding Ramadan, where we sort of dwindled through the rest of the 11 months. And Ramadan is about bringing oneself back to Allah, strengthening iman, and just refreshing yourself, ready for the next part of the year. Ramadan teaches patience and sympathy. Most beloved month to Allah, revelation of the Quran. Every nafil act is elevated to the reward of a fard. Now, with this specific point, it doesn't mean that the fard act is then compensated. Rather, the nafil act is just elevated to the reward of a fard. Every fard is increased in reward 70 times. And the first days, 10 days of Ramadan are mercy, the middle 10 days are for forgiveness, and the last 10 days are emancipation from the fire of hell, so saving oneself from the fire of Jahannam. Next slide, please. So there are 5 golden principles which relate to fasting. Now, the first one is the qualified cavity, and this relates to what area the food or agent reaches. So if food, also known as agent, throat, it reaches the throat, stomach, intestines. If it reaches any of these 3 areas, then the fast is broken. So qualified cavity is areas in which the food or object needs to reach, needs to settle there and dissolve for the fast to be broken. So the throat, the stomach, and the intestines. The second point, qualified passage. So this is a pathway that leads to any of the above qualified cavities. So any areas that lead to the throat, stomach, or intestines, the fast will immediately break. So such as the mouth and nose lead to the throat, the anus, the rectum lead to the intestines, and the abdominal injury that lead to the stomach. So if anything that is inserted in, such as anything that is inserted into the mouth or nose, which then leads to the throat and it reaches the throat, then the fast is broken. Anything that is inserted up to the rectum and it reaches the intestines, then the fast is broken. Next slide. Qualified agent, the food agent is of a nourishing source. So this qualified agent is talking about what is actually inserted in, whether it's a food or is it a gel, is it a liquid. Second point, inhaling smoke or steam intentionally swallowing a bead, a stone, and intentionally inhaling avoidable substances break the fast. So all this is intentionally. So intentionally inhaling smoke. A lot of people do have incense candles and like Waheed in their house. So if you're standing near one and you're intentionally inhaling it, you feel the smoke going down your throat and you can taste it as well. That would break your fast because you're intentionally doing something to make the smoke reach your throat. And the food agent is of a nourishing source or not. So whether the food gives you nourishment, whether it gives you strength or not, that would still break your fast because it is leading to the qualified cavity, which is the throat, the intestines, and the mouth as well, the stomach as well. Qualified consequences, the settling and absorption of the food and agent. So anything that settles in the stomach, the throat, or the intestines, and it disappears there. Hence, anything is inserted into the throat and immediately drawn out does not break the fast, provided no remnant of it remains. So the ulama have given an example that if something is inserted down into the throat, like a piece of food, and it's attached to a string, it's inserted down into the stomach, it's then drawn back out, and any remaining food is not left into the stomach, then the fast does not break, because here, although the food is of a nourishing source, it has not settled or absorbed into the stomach. Therefore, the fast does not break. Moving on. Qualified excuses. So these are things that don't invalidate the fast despite of the above points. So forgetfulness. So if you're eating or you're drinking and you have completely forgotten that you're fasting. So eating, drinking, or having sexual relations with a partner, these things do not break the fast as long as you don't do them intentionally and you've also forgotten that you're actual fasting in that state. Adduceness, example, the fumes, vapor, dust, saliva, and mucus. Now, fumes and vapor, dust, these are things that are unavoidable. Now, as I mentioned before, fumes such as smoke, like a Waheed in your house, and you're intentionally inhaling that would break the fast as it reaches the qualified cavity. However, fumes, vapor, and dust, saliva, and mucus, these are things that are unavoidable. Example, you're walking past a factory and you inhale something, or you're walking past a shop and you inhale that and it's unavoidable smoke, unavoidable vapor or dust. These things do not break the fast. The following are not excused: necessity, ignorance, accident, coercion, sleep, unconsciousness. Only qadha is necessary. So if any of these acts happen out of necessity, ignorance, you're being ignorant to the rulings of fasting, you just want to eat or you want to drink, and you know that you're fasting as well. Accident, so say if something enters your throat by accident. Coercion, so if somebody forcefully gives you something. Sleep, unconsciousness, only qadha is necessary. Then qadha is necessary for only these acts, regardless of what enters the qualified cavity. Move on to the next one. So here we have a diagram, and the pink bubbles that you can see, these are the qualified food agents. So if we look at the top right-hand corner, we have the qualified agent and food. So this is where it enters the throat first. If you look at the left-hand side, we have the qualified passage, which is the mouth and nose. If you look at the right-hand side, the second arrow, the qualified cavity, which is the throat. Underneath that, the qualified cavity stomach in which the agent settles. So obviously we have three qualified cavities, which are the throat, we have the stomach, and the last one, which is the qualified cavity, the intestines. And underneath that, qualified passage, the anus and the rectum. So anything that is inserted up to the anus or rectum, example, if a woman is having a smear test, that does not break the fast because it does not directly lead to the cavity of the intestines. Rather, it's just inserted up and then drawn back out. Anything that reaches the intestines, reaches the throat or the stomach, it settles there and disappears, that will break the fast. However, a smear test, as it's just inserted up and drawn back out, nothing is settled there, nothing disappears there, the fast does not break in that case. So invalidation of one's fast. If we look at the left-hand side first, that which necessitates both Qadha and Kaffarah. Kaffarah is a penalty a person must give as an expiation for the crime, so the crime of breaking the fast. So Kaffarah becomes necessary if someone to intentionally eat or drink that which is naturally nourishing, so also out of ignorance as well, or coercion, that only becomes necessary, because that only becomes necessary for them. Number two, someone to intentionally have intercourse in the vaginal or the anal passage, whether ejaculated or not. And number three, someone intentionally drinks medication without necessity. So somebody who drinks medication and they're not in a dire need where, they're going to become unconscious or they're close to death. Rather, it's just something mild that they can continue their fast. However, they drink their medication, Qadha and Kaffarah does become necessary. Moving on to the right-hand side, that which necessitates Qadha only. Qadha means to make up the number of fasts missed. Here you don't have to do Kaffarah, you just have to keep the fast that you've missed already. Moving on. Invalidators of the fast. So those factors necessitating Qadha only. So these 3 points, these are just basic examples that necessitate Qadha only. You don't have to do Kaffarah for these. To intentionally eat or drink something which is not naturally nourishing. So example, if you're swallowing a bead or something. Number two, ejaculation without intimate relationship, example, masturbation or kissing one's spouse, etc. And to intake medication due to a genuine reason. So if you look at the last one, as I did mention before in the previous slide, to intake medication when there's no need for you to take medication and when there's not a genuine reason where you're in a dire circumstance and you take medication, that will instigate Qadha and Kaffarah. However, if you do need to take medication for a genuine reason, you only need to do Qadha for that, not Kaffarah, because you do have a genuine reason to take the medication. A fasting person who becomes unconscious for a few days, then apart from the first day, the remaining days he must do Qadha. To intentionally vomit a mouthful, to intentionally return the vomit back into the stomach, whether in small quantity or large, using an asthma inhaler and using a nasal spray. Now, using an asthma inhaler and a nasal spray, I'm just going to expand on these 2 points, because the inhaler and the nasal spray, when you do use them, the spray does reach your throat, does reach a qualified cavity, therefore you can taste it. That's what breaks the fast in these cases. To eat or drink accidentally, to eat deliberately after eating, drinking, vomiting, unintentionally, or having intercourse out of forgetfulness, assuming that the fast is broke. So if you know that the fast is broken out of forgetfulness, still after that you continue eating and drinking, consciously aware that your fast, you think you've broken your fast, in that case you only have to do Qadha, not Kaffarah. A person eats assuming that suhoor has not ended or iftar has not begun, but the reality was the contrary. To intentionally allow or inhale smoke, or just to enter the mouth. So this is what I expanded on before. So intentionally allow, if it's unavoidable smoke, it does not break the fast. However, to intentionally stand there and inhale the smoke and let it reach your throat, that is what breaks the fast. To intake smoke into the nostrils intentionally, and intercourse other than either of the 2 passages with ejaculation. If in the vaginal or anal passage, then both Qadha and Kaffarah becomes necessary with or without ejaculation. Moving on. Examples of invalidating the fast. So these are things in which the fast is broken with. Now, do remember that this is what expiates qadha, not kafara. A fasting individual has been called for an endoscopy. During the examination, a lubricant is placed on the camera for ease in swallowing. In this case, the fast is broken due to the lubricant settling in the stomach. Now, this was a specific example.
No, yeah, I'm gonna leave it. I don't want to mute.
This was a specific example where if you eat something in the stomach and it settles, so if either the substance, in this case, it enters the stomach, it settles there and it disappears, then the fast is broken. So during an endoscopy, if lubricant is placed on the camera to have ease in swallowing, now obviously as the lubricant is inserted into the throat, it then maybe some part of it maybe falls off and it settles into the stomach and therefore it disappears, the fast is then broken. Medication that is inserted directly into the rectum breaks the fast due to it leading to the intestines. Now, this is different from when a smear test is carried out, because it is just inserted and then it is then taken back out. Nothing is left in the vaginal passage and nothing is taken back out of it except maybe just a swab. So therefore, this doesn't break the fast having a smear test. However, if the swab is inserted with something on it and is left there, then it is broken if it leads directly to the intestines. Sniffing medicine where it reaches the throat invalidates the fast. So this also goes to like a nasal spray or an asthma pipe where it reaches the throat, you can taste it, it would then break the fast. Moving on. So this is a case study. In Ramadan, Zainab was performing wudu. Whilst excessively pouring water into her throat, she felt it trickle down. While excessively pouring water into her nose, she felt it trickle down her throat. Does her fast remain valid? What do you think? So at this point, sisters, you can, the host will let you unmute your mics and you can give me your suggestions, tell me what you think, and also what is the reason you think whether her fast remains valid or it does not remain valid. Okay, if you're typing in the chat box, give a little explanation. Why do you think her fast does not remain valid? Okay, any more suggestions? That's fine. We've got some really good answers coming in. So we have, in this case, we have Zainab performing wudu whilst pouring water down her throat. She's realized she's fasting. She feels it trickle down her throat. Does her fast remain valid? In this case, her fast would not remain valid. This is because knowing she was fasting, she's excessively poured water down her throat. Now, obviously, when you're fasting, you need to be careful up till where you're pouring water down your throat or up till where you're putting water in your nostrils. So you do need to be careful when you're fasting where the water is, how excessively you are pouring water in. And as she felt it trickle down her throat, as the throat is a qualified cavity and the water then trickles down her throat, it goes, obviously settles into her stomach, her fast will be broken. So some really good answers coming in, well done. Moving on. Next slide, please. What is the penalty? So this is concerning the penalty of kaffarah. So remember, kaffarah relates to that which is intentionally you have broken your fast. So intentionally you have eaten something, intentionally you had sexual relations with your partner. This is what you'd have to do to sort of make up for the fast. So A is to emancipate a slave, not applicable today. Now, this relates to the Prophet ﷺ's time when there were slaves very prevalent. And so the Prophet ﷺ gave the order for the Sahaba to emancipate a slave, to free a slave. Now, as it's not applicable today, we move on to the next option that the Prophet ﷺ gave. B, to fast for 60 days, but if unable to do so, then to feed 60 poor and destitute people. So the poor person is the one who is eligible for zakat. One must give each poor person the equivalent amount of sadaqatul fitr or feed him 2 meals a day. And it is also permissible to feed one poor person 2 meals daily for 60 days or to give the value of sadaqatul fitr each day. Now, this goes in order. So if you are unable to free a slave, which is applicable, you need to fast for 60 days consecutively. Now, what this is you have to fast 60 days without taking a break. Now, obviously for women, if they have the menstruation in between, so you stop for those days and then you continue after. Now, these fasting for 60 days, you can fast anytime throughout the year. We do generally say fast throughout the winter months, as the fasts are just generally shorter. So if you're unable to fast, like an old person, or they have a medical reason, they need to feed 60 poor people or destitute people. Now, they can either give this person this 60 poor people 1 meal, 2 meals a day for 60 days, or they can either give one poor person the equivalent amount of sadaqatul fitr to feed him 2 meals a day. Now, with regards to feeding one person for 60 days, it is not enough for you to sort of fill their fridge for 60 days and say, that's your meals, that will do you for 60 days. Rather, you need to consecutively feed them 60 days, which is every single day for 60 days, 2 meals. Moving on. So non-invalidators of the fast. So these are things which do not break the fast. Now, a lot of these are very common because we do generally get a lot of sisters asking, what breaks the fast? I've done this. Does it break the fast? Does it not break the fast? So a lot of these points are really important to understand and sort of know generally as well. So to eat, drink, or have an intimate relationship forgetfully. Now, remember, forgetfully is the main word here, because doing things when you're forgetfully doing them, if you are conscious of them, obviously you need to do Qadha and Kaffarah. But forgetfully, your fast does not break. If you do it accidentally, your fast does break in that case. So to ejaculate orgasm whilst having a wet dream, to apply oil or surma, smoke to enter the mouth unintentionally, vomiting unintentionally even a mouthful, to swallow something stuck between your teeth that is less than a chickpea in quantity, so something that is smaller than a chickpea, maybe like a poppy seed, cupping, wet dream. Moving on. Acupuncture, contact lenses. Now, with contact lenses, you are allowed to use it during Ramadan, because if you add a solution to them or anything like that, it doesn't reach the qualified cavity of the stomach, the throat, or the intestines. Deodorants and lotions, extracting blood. So giving blood, as it is something that's taken out of your body, it's not inserted in, that does not break the fast. Injections. So injections normally in the arm or in the arm area or somewhere, it does not break the fast because they don't lead to the qualified cavity and they don't settle into the qualified cavity and disappear there. So therefore, you are allowed to have injections, whether that is a nourishing injection or not. Applying lip balm or makeup. So do be careful with lip balm, as if you sort of lick your lips or something like that, the lip balm maybe can come off and you can maybe taste it in your mouth as well. Applying makeup, it does not break the fast, as anything you apply to your face, it does not lead to the qualified cavity. Therefore, is a big misconception between women that makeup breaks the fast. Makeup does not break the fast because it does not lead to the qualified cavity. Mouthwash, toothpaste, depending on if it is swallowed. So really be careful if you're fasting and you do use toothpaste. If you can taste the toothpaste and it enters your throat and you feel it go down your throat, then it does break the fast. Just be careful that when you're brushing your teeth, do you remember that toothpaste does not go down and it is not swallowed into the throat. A vaginal examination or a smear test, medicine or oil in the ears. As the ears, it does not lead to a qualified cavity, therefore it does not break the fast. So example of non-invalidators. So a fasting woman attended a vaginal examination. Her fast remains valid due to the swab not reaching the qualified cavity. Passive smoking, so smoking that is unavoidable, does not invalidate the fast due to it being unavoidable smoke, and applying ear or eye drops do not invalidate the fast due to them not reaching the qualified cavity of the throat. So all these examples, they don't reach the qualified cavity of the stomach, the throat, or the intestines, therefore they do not break the fast. Moving on. So miscellaneous, so these are just miscellaneous disliked acts of fasting. So to chew or taste something unnecessarily without swallowing it. So many a times women, when they are cooking during Ramadan, they taste or chew something If they do spit it out, then in that case, it does not break the fast. However, if it's really something that you don't need to chew, you think it's fine just the way you made it, then there's no need for you to taste that in the end. But do be careful that when you're chewing or you're tasting something, you don't swallow it. In that case, it would break the fast. So using toothpaste, that is disliked due to you may swallow it and you may taste it, and therefore it leads to a qualified cavity, such as a throat. To kiss or come into contact with one's spouse without self-control. So if you're unable to control yourself when coming into contact with your spouse, it's best to just avoid it, as that would be a disliked act of fasting, as it may lead to something else. Gathering saliva to quench the thirst, and to do anything that weakens the person. So we have a final case study, and that is during the first few days of Ramadan, Sarah was cooking and she forgetfully tasted and swallowed the food she had made, only realizing a few minutes later. Is her fast broken? So as we did before, put your comments in the chat box and tell me, why do you think, is Sarah's fast broken? Is it not? And why do you think that? Any more suggestions? Right, so we've got some really good suggestions coming in here. We've got not broken due to forgetfulness, not broken due to our forgetfulness. It has reached a qualified cavity. That's really good answers. Yes, so in this case, Sarah's fast would be broken because it would not be broken because she'd forgetfully tasted the food, and then only after had she realized, it was a few minutes later, she'd realized that she'd swallowed the food. So her fast is broken in this case. However, if Sarah, after she'd realized that she'd tasted the food, and then she thought that her fast was broken and she intentionally ate after that, then her fast would be broken, as she realized that she was fasting and then she ate afterwards. However, in this case, as she realized that she'd tasted the food forgetfully and she'd stopped eating after that, then her fast would still remain intact. However, if she ate after that, intentionally knowing that she was fasting, her fast would break. Yes, that's fine. Her fast would be broken if she continued to eat. It would be broken. Yeah, that's fine. So moving on to the next slide. So I will now hand over to Apa Sajeda, and she will be covering pregnancy, menstruation, Taraweeh, and I'tikaf.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you are all well. Jazakallah for coming on attending the Zoom session on a sunny Saturday afternoon when you could be outside doing something else, especially in the holidays. And may Allah accept everybody that's contributing. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbi zidni ilma. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina maulana wa nabiyyina wa barik wa sallim. Obviously, one point just to keep in mind is the reason that we do go over these fiqh masail is so that our ibadat become correct and they become better. And the reason we want our ibadat to be correct is so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts them, and then we can build a relationship with Allah and we can connect with Allah. So the main end goal is connecting with Allah and building a relationship with Allah, and that can only happen if our ibadat are correct. So we'll start with the first slide. Menstruation and fasting. Now, a menstruating woman or a woman on nifas is not allowed to fast during Ramadan. So that is a masla, it's a common masla, everybody knows that it's haram to fast whilst menstruating. And the second masala is that a woman that is on her period or is on nifas, she should not do imsak. Now that means that she shouldn't assimilate a fasting person, as in act like a fasting person by refraining from eating and drinking throughout the day. Now, what some people think is that I'm on my periods, but if I don't eat or if I don't drink, then that makes me extra good because I'm acting like a fasting person. But in reality, that is haram to do as well. So what she should do is she can eat during the day. However, she should be cautious of eating in front of people that are fasting. So what a woman on her periods should do is she should eat something so that she's not assimilating a fasting person. But obviously it shouldn't be done in front of a person that is fasting, and it shouldn't be done very frequently as well, remembering the sanctity of Ramadan and the special time that it is as well. Now, the missed fasts must be made up after Ramadan. So if you've missed a fast, then you have to do qadha after Ramadan. And the quicker you do it, obviously, the better, because the more they pile up, then it's harder to do. And especially in the winter months, because they're really small, then you should try to do them straight away. So if you've got like 7 a year, then do them the same year rather than all of them adding up, and then 5 years later you've got like 35, 40 to do. Then it becomes really overwhelming and difficult. The next masla is that if someone starts their period anytime during the fast, even if it is just before Maghrib, the fast will become invalid. They will have to make up for that fast. This person is allowed to eat after the period has started. So now let's look at an example. Maghrib is at 7:56. Saliha uses the bathroom at 7:50 and sees that her period has started. The fast that she kept will now become invalid. So no matter how long there is left of the fast, even if there's only a few minutes left, then that fast will be broken. Even if it's in the morning, if it's in the afternoon, if it's literally a minute before Maghrib, that fast is not valid anymore, and you will have to make up for that fast. I know many people get disappointed when this happens, but remember, it's whatever Allah wanted, and it's just an opportunity for us to keep another fast. And inshallah, the fast that you have kept, or the hours that you have refrained from eating and drinking, inshallah, Allah will reward us for that as well. Now, the next masla is that if someone finishes their period during the day, they should not eat for the rest of the day. So let's look at the example. Maryam has finished her period at 2 p.m. Maghrib is at 8 p.m. She should not eat or drink for the rest of the day. However, this day will not be counted as a fasting day. So once you've had your ghusl, or even after your period has finished, you should not be eating, and now is the time to assimilate a fasting person. So now you act as though you are fasting, even though in reality you are not, and you will still have to make up for that day. The next masla is that if someone has completely finished their period before Subh Sadiq, but has not been able to have a bath before Subh Sadiq, they should do niyat of the fast and then take a bath. So let's look at the example that Zahra has completely finished a period at 1 a.m. Now, when I mean completely, she knows for definite she's not going to bleed again, or there's no dots of blood or anything like that. Subh Sadiq is at 1:24. She has not had a bath yet. So then what she should do is she should have sehri, do niyat of fasting, and then have a bath. Thereafter, pray Fajr. But please know that ghusl should not be delayed any further, as there is a possibility of missing Fajr. So don't think that, oh, I've started my roza anyway, I'm in holiday roza, I'll just wake up and do my ghusl. That should not be done, because if you do that, then you will most probably miss your Fajr. Next slide, please. Okay, let's look at a case study, and you can pop your answers in the chat box. Yasmin has a normal habit of 7 days of period. In Ramadan, she tends to bleed less. And it does happen with some people. They might bleed more, they might bleed less. On the 5th day, she has not bled for 6 hours. She decides to have a bath. She keeps a fast on the 6th and the 7th day. However, on the 8th day, she sees blood again. So she's kept a fast on the 6th and the 7th, but now she's bleeding again on the 8th. Are the fasts she kept on the 6th and the 7th valid? And what has happened to her bleeding habit? Yep, we've got some good answers coming in. Yep. Yes, her fasts are not valid. So the rosa that she kept on the 6th and the 7th day of her period will not be valid. She will have to make up for them again, and then her bleeding habit has also changed. So now her habit has turned to 8 days. Now, a lot of people do this in Ramadan, that they take ghusl, start fasting, take ghusl, start fasting, because they don't want to do qadha. But remember, if you do this, you are actually doing something haram, because there's a possibility that you could be on your period and then you're fasting. And for a woman who is on her period, for her to fast is haram. Next slide, please. Okay, now we're going to look at the masail of pregnancy, breastfeeding, and fasting. A pregnant or breastfeeding woman has a concession not to fast. However, if she is able to fast without causing harm to herself or the fetus, then she is encouraged to fast. Now, the masala is not this, I'm pregnant, I'm not going to fast. If you know that being pregnant is not going to cause, fasting is not going to cause harm to me or to the baby, I've tried a few fasts, I was completely fine, then obviously you are encouraged to fast and you should fast. If doing all 30 in a row is very difficult, then keep a few, then take a break, and then keep a few more. Because again, if you're going to miss 30 fasts, then to do qadha of them outside of Ramadan is going to be very, very difficult. If a pregnant woman has to break a fast due to her pregnancy, then she is allowed to do so. She will only have to do qadha. Kaffarah will not be necessary. So a woman is pregnant and she's fasting, but she feels that she cannot carry on. And this is because of the pregnancy, not because of any other reason. Then yes, she can break her fast, but then she'll just have to do qadha. So let's look at some examples. Zainab kept 10 fasts for Ramadan. She was fine while fasting. On the 11th fast, she found out she was pregnant. She should carry on fasting until she genuinely feels that fasting is going to harm her baby or herself. So if she's kept 10 fasts and she's been able to do it, then the minute she finds out that she's pregnant, the masala isn't that, okay, now I'm going to stop fasting. She should still try and she should carry on. Another example is Hafsa is 5 months pregnant. She is fasting, but has not had any severe side effects from fasting. In her previous pregnancy, she did fast the full Ramadan. She did find them hard. However, she did not face any major issues and had a healthy baby. Then in her second pregnancy as well, she should carry on fasting until she genuinely feels that fasting is going to harm her baby or herself. Again, for everybody it's going to be very different. You won't be able to base your situation on somebody else's situation, that she didn't fast, so I'm not going to fast. She kept a fast while she was pregnant, so I'm going to keep a fast as well. Everybody's pregnancy is different, so everybody's whether they fast or not is going to be different as well. Now we're going to look at intimacy and fasting. Now, if someone was to have intercourse through forgetfulness, then the fast will not break. Please note, forgetfulness and by mistake are completely different. So forgetfulness is when you are completely unaware, you've completely forgotten that you are fasting. Mistake is that you do know that you are fasting, but for example, if somebody's gargling, they're aware they're fasting, and they gargle too hard that the water goes down their throat. Now that would be a mistake. That wouldn't be forgetfulness. If someone was to have intercourse in either of the two passages, intentionally, with or without ejaculation, then the fast will be broken. Both qadha and kaffarah will be necessary. So whether so the fast will be broken and they'll have to do qadha and kaffarah, and obviously they should do tawbah as well. So let's look at this example. It is the first of Ramadan. Sumaya and her husband completely forgot it's Ramadan and that they are fasting. So they have genuinely completely forgotten. They have intercourse, and during this time, it does not cross their mind at all that they are fasting. Then their fast will not break, because you've got the element of genuine forgetfulness. Next slide, please. Now, hugging or kissing, which leads to absolutely nothing further, will not break the fast. But like Apa Maryam already said, that if you know that you can't control yourself, then it's makruh to do that. If kissing results in swallowing the other person's saliva, then this will break the fast. Both qadha and kaffarah will be necessary. Now let's look. So again, if you know that this is a possibility and this might happen, best thing is just avoid it completely. Example, Zainab hugs her husband in a loving, non-sexual way. She also pecks him on the cheek. She knows this will definitely not lead to anything further. As per her thoughts, it does not go any further. Her fast has not broken, and that was also not makruh for her to do as well, because she knew that she had control. Next slide, please. Now, if someone was to ejaculate through physical stimulation, like hugging or kissing, then only qadha will be necessary. So for example, if a husband and wife are hugging or kissing, it doesn't lead to anything further, but it does lead to ejaculation, then the fast has broken, but they won't have to give kafara because it's not intercourse, but they will have to do qadha. And obviously tawbah again, if someone was to ejaculate through non-physical stimulation, like a wet dream, or just by looking at their spouse, then the fast will not break. So for example, so again, there's ejaculation, but this time they didn't do anything physical themselves. So it was, for example, a wet dream, or they were just looking at their spouse and that led to ejaculation, then the fast does not break. So let's look at an example. Aisha and her husband are hugging while fasting. Her husband ejaculates, however, she does not ejaculate, but she releases madhi. Aisha's husband will need to do qadha and have a ghusl. Aisha has not broken her fast. However, she will need to do wudu again. But again, the whole scenario is makruh and it should be avoided. The next slide, please. Now, having an orgasm without ejaculation and intercourse will not result in the fast breaking. So if it's just an orgasm, there's nothing else there, then the fast does not break. But if someone has an orgasm with ejaculation, then the fast will break. But if no intercourse was involved, then only qadha will be necessary. Now, when a woman ejaculates, she will release a seminal fluid which is yellow in color. Now, for a woman, it's very difficult to tell whether she's ejaculated or not. So even when she has an orgasm, it's difficult to tell. The one way to tell is that she will release a yellow fluid. Now, no, that doesn't happen with many women as well. So if you're not sure, the best thing to do is just to do qadha. Now let's look at the example. A person is masturbating, which is not allowed in Islam. He has an orgasm. However, he stops himself from ejaculating. Then his fast will not break. Yes, the fast is not broken, but again, it's a guna, and they should do tawbah, and then it's disliked, it's a guna, it doesn't, spiritually will not be good for the fast at all. So sometimes, remember, some things do break your fast, but that doesn't mean that your fast is spiritually in a good place. So we have to make sure that our fast is not broken, but our fast is also in the eyes of Allah and spiritually to a very good degree. The next slide, please. Let's look at a case study, and you can pop your answers in the chat box. A woman and her husband are touching each other whilst fasting. They know that this may lead to intercourse. They try their best to avoid it. However, they cannot control themselves and end up having intercourse. This was done whilst they were aware they were fasting. What is the ruling? Any answers? See. Qadha and Kaffarah. Yep, some good ones coming in. Yep. Yeah, so over here the fast is broken and they will have to do qadha and kaffarah, and it was intentional. They knew, they were aware what was happening, and they knew that they were fasting as well. Jazakallah for your answers. Next slide, please. Now let's look at Taraweeh Salah. Taraweeh is Sunnatul Muakkada, consisting of 20 rakats. It must be read after the Isha Salah. Now, the answer to that question is yes, you do qadha of your fast, and then your kaffarah is separate. It's 60 days separate. So your Taraweeh is Sunnatul Muakkada. It must be read after the Isha Salah. Without Isha Salah, Taraweeh is invalid. So if you say that, okay, today I'm not going to read my Isha, I'm just reading 20 rakats Taraweeh and then going to bed, your 20 rakats Taraweeh is not, it's not valid, it's not done. It is best for women to read Taraweeh Salah at home, just like any other Salah, it's best to read at home. An old woman who is struggling with standing up and praying her Taraweeh will be allowed to pray sitting down. So if somebody is genuinely really struggling, then they can pray sitting down, not just because, of example, they're feeling a bit lazy or a bit tired or a bit sleepy, and they think that let me just sit down and pray. Now 20 rakats is the sunnah. There's a lot of debate about how many rakats of salah, Taraweeh Salah is. So let's look at this. The people of knowledge have differed concerning the number of rakats of Taraweeh performed during Ramadan. Some have asserted to be 41 rakats, including the witr. This was an opinion of the people of Medina and their practice. However, the opinion of the majority is it's 20 rakats of Taraweeh, and this opinion is in line with the narrations of Sayyidina Ali, Sayyidina Umar, radiallahu anhuma, and other companions radiallahu anhum ajma'een. This is also the opinion of Hazrat Sufyan al-Thawri, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Mubarak, Imam Shafi'i, rahmatullahi alayhim. In fact, Imam Shafi'i states, I found the people of my city, Mecca, performing 20 rakats. Imam Ahmad states there are various reports to be found concerning Taraweeh, but no exact number to be confirmed. And Ishaq Ramtullahi states we performed 41 rakats according to the narration of Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu. Ibn Rushd states Imam Malik, along with Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Shafi, Imam Ahmad, Dawud al-Zahiri, you prefer 20 rakats to be performed in Ramadan, excluding the witr. Ibn al-Qasim reports from Imam Malik that he preferred 36 rakats with 3 witr. Now, within all that, you can see that there's lots of dalail and opinions, and there's lots of work written on that as well. You don't find 8 rakats on there anyway. Now, I was just doing a few calculations, and I was thinking that the people who read 20 rakats instead of 8 rakats, they read 360 more rakats per Ramadan. And let's just say on average, somebody becomes baligh at the age of 14, 15, and they pass away at the age of 64, 65. So you've got 50 years. So if you do 360 times by 50, you've got 18,000 more rakats. So on the day of Qiyamah, they will come with 18,000 more rakats than the people who used to read 8 rakats. Now that in itself, imagine the thawab, and then remember everything in Ramadan gets multiplied. So that in itself and the amount of thawab should encourage you to read the 20 rakats. And obviously then on the day of Qiyamah, the people who used to read 8 rakats, they will then wish that they've got so much more thawab than we do. And to be honest, how many of us are going to read an extra 18,000 nafil throughout our lifetime? So it's an opportunity for us. So we should try to make the most out of it. Next slide. Now we're going to talk about i'tikaf. Now, i'tikaf means to seclude oneself in the masjid, the area of prayer. The whole purpose of i'tikaf is to seclude yourself and connect with Allah, and to do ibadat in seclusion, just you and Allah. That is the whole purpose of i'tikaf. Now, there are 4 conditions for i'tikaf to be valid. You have to remain in the masjid, or if you're a woman and you're doing it, I'm just looking at the question, sorry. Yes, what you can do is you can pray your 10 rakats and then take a break and then carry on. It doesn't have to be like 2 rakats after 2 rakats after 2 rakats, as long as you've prayed them before you go to sleep and before your sahri, etc. To make intention of the i'tikaf, obviously every ibadat needs an intention. Without intention, it's not valid. To be pure from major impurity, janabat, and another important one is to fast. There are 3 types of i'tikaf. You've got your wajib i'tikaf. Now that would be, for example, if you make another that I'm going, if so and so thing happens and I'm going to do i'tikaf for this many days, then you will have to fulfill them. Next one is sunnat. That's the one that we do in Ramadan. And nafil, when you just stay in i'tikaf for a short amount of time and then you can leave whenever you want. Next slide, please. Now, i'tikaf is sunnah in the last 10 days of Ramadan. So it starts from Maghrib on the 20th fast. So it's after the 20th fast on the 21st night. And when do you have to say? Until the moon has been sighted for Eid. So until you have full confirmation that the moon has been sighted. Now, for women, it should be performed at home in the specific room, place where a woman normally reads her salah. So if you've got a specific room where you read your salah, then you should do your i'tikaf there. But on that point, this is my opinion, that you shouldn't generally on a day-to-day basis, you should try to pray your salah in every single room of the house. And even when you pray Quran, you should try to pray Quran in every single room of your house as well. But if you've got one specific place that you really like to read and you feel that you can pay attention more closely, then fair enough, you should stay in that room. If a woman has no specific place at home for her salah, then she should designate a room for her i'tikaf. A place where she can comfortably eat, sleep, and pray, but it shouldn't really be very big. And it shouldn't really be a place where people are coming in and out all the time. So for example, if you're going to do it in the main living room or in the main sitting room, you're not going to be able to concentrate, and you're going to kind of defeat the purpose of i'tikaf. Okay, now we've got an example. Aisha starts secluding herself in her room all day to pray. However, she made no intention of i'tikaf when she started. Her i'tikaf is not valid. So remember, it's very, very important that you make your intention. Next slide, please. This was one of the questions. A menstruating woman cannot do i'tikaf. The reason being is, what was one of the conditions of i'tikaf? That you have to be in halate roza. And obviously a woman on her periods is not in halate roza, so she can't do i'tikaf. If a woman starts her period during i'tikaf, then she will quit her i'tikaf and do qadha for one day. So so let's look at the examples actually. Fatima wants to do i'tikaf. However, she knows that on the 25th of Ramadan, she will start her period. If you know that your periods are coming up, then what you should do is don't do the sunnat i'tikaf, do the nafil. So do the nafil i'tikaf for 4 days, because in nafil i'tikaf, you can leave anytime. Now let's look at another example. Aisha started her i'tikaf. However, on the 27th of Ramadan at Zuhr time, she started her period. What she will do is straight away quit her i'tikaf, and she will only have to do qadha of that one day of the i'tikaf. So later on, with a roza as well, just do qadha of that one day. She won't have to do qadha of the other 3 days. Now, things that break the i'tikaf. To leave the designated area without a valid reason, even for a slight moment, will break the i'tikaf. A valid excuse would be to answer the call of nature or to go for first ghusl. Food and drink should be brought to the woman who is sitting in i'tikaf. Now, if the woman lives alone, then obviously she will be able to leave the room to get the food, because now that's a necessity. Or there's a potential threat in staying in that place. So for example, just say the roof in that room has caved down, so now she has to move, or there's a fire or something like that and she has to move, then obviously then that will be fine. She'll just move to another place. Next slide, please. Sexual intercourse will render the i'tikaf void. Now, whether it's done intentionally or by mistake, whether it's forgetful, over here will completely make the i'tikaf invalid. Kissing, cuddling, etc. will break the i'tikaf if it leads to ejaculation. If it does not lead to ejaculation, then the i'tikaf does not break, but again, it is something that should be avoided. Now, if the fast breaks during your i'tikaf, then the i'tikaf also breaks. So because fasting is a condition for i'tikaf, if the condition breaks, then the i'tikaf also breaks. Now let's look at a case example. Zainab kissed her husband during one of the nights of the i'tikaf. So remember, i'tikaf is day and night, so the rule applies. The rules do apply during the day and the night. It did not lead to ejaculation. Her i'tikaf is not broken. However, her act is not recommended. And then just to know at the bottom that in the case where the i'tikaf breaks, only 1 day of qada is necessary with a fast. Next slide, please. Now let's look at some case studies and pop your answers in the box, please. Fatima lives with her husband. Whilst in i'tikaf, she went to answer the phone, or let's just say she went to the door. It was a parcel delivery, or the next door neighbors, they were sending food. Now, do you think her i'tikaf is still valid? And if it's broken, why? But if it's not broken, then why? Yep, some good answers coming in. Now the answer is that to answer the door, it's not a necessity. To answer the phone, it's not a necessity. To get a parcel is not a necessity. So she's leaving her room and she lives with other people. They could have answered the door. So because she's leaving her designated area without a valid reason, her i'tikaf will now break. Even if it was just literally open the door and come back, or even somehow so small, it does break the i'tikaf. Jazakallah for the answers. Now let's look at the next one. Maryam is 7 months pregnant. She has attempted fasting, however, she fainted whilst doing so. Her doctor has told her fasting is harming her. She should not fast. She has taken the advice on board and stopped fasting. She decides to do i'tikaf. Now, what would you say to Maryam? Yep, some good answers coming. Keep them coming. Yes, that's correct. She can't do i'tikaf because for i'tikaf, the first slide we looked at, it did say that fasting, to keep a fast, is a requirement, is a condition, and obviously she can't meet that condition at the moment, so therefore she cannot do i'tikaf. Next slide, please. Jazakallah for your answers. No, even in i'tikaf, generally you need to have a fast. Okay, we're going to take a break. Hope, inshallah, you did learn from those sessions, and Jazakallah khair for attending. Please do come back after the break because we're going to look at some common questions and then you can ask some questions yourself. And any questions that were left in the chat box unanswered, inshallah, we'll answer them.
3 fasts that are broken. You don't need to give 3 separate kafaras for the fast. And question 3, do bleeding gums break the fast? The answer is if the saliva is dominant over the blood in the mouth, the fast does not break. However, if the blood is more dominant over the saliva and an individual swallows it, the fast is broken. As in this case, the blood, it will reach the qualified cavity, which is the throat. Therefore, the fast is broken as you can taste the blood as well. Moving on.
If a person intends to travel abroad during midday, so they've not started traveling, they're still at home, can he break his fast before traveling? No, it's not permissible as he is still a resident. So they're still at home. That's why they can't break their fast. If he does, then both Qadha and Kaffarah will become necessary because he deliberately broke his fast when he doesn't have a valid reason. He's still a muqim, he's still at home. Now, if a musafir, so let's just say they've sat in the car and they've already started traveling, they're going towards the airport. Now the person is a musafir. Then he breaks his fast, then only qadha is necessary. Over here, kafara will not be necessary. But again, it's not something that should be done.
So question 4, when the adhan is called out for suhoor whilst the food is in one's mouth, must he discard it immediately? So the answer is no, he is not required to discard it. It is permissible to finish off the remaining few morsels, but to not begin eating at that time. So he should finish already what he's got in his mouth, but he shouldn't eat anything after that. So the note is one must always be conscious at the end time of suhoor, and it is recommended to stop eating a few minutes before the end time of suhoor. Just to be on the safe side, be aware of the time of suhoor and then stop eating a few minutes before that, so you're not eating when the adhan is called out. Question 5, does drawing blood out invalidate the fast? So this is the same as, donating blood, giving blood. No, it does not invalidate the fast, as in this case, nothing is actually inserted into the qualified cavity for the fast to break. Apa Sajeda, question 6.
Am I allowed to visit the dentist to take my tooth out whilst fasting? Yes, the breaking of a fast relates to anything that slips down the throat and reaches the stomach. As long as one is assured that nothing will slip down the throat, you can visit the dentist. Now, if something does, then that's not going to be forgetfulness, that's going to be a mistake. So the rosa will break. Next slide, please.
Okay.
So now we have the Q&A session coming up. Ustaz, if I can hand back to you.
Okay, Jazakumullah khair for Mufti Abbas for that very informative session. Mashallah, I have been looking at some of the feedbacks. So I'm going to be delegating some of the questions. So there's a question for you, Apa Mufti Sajeda. Is Salam, can the Apa touch on istihada and haid, as this is something many don't know about? I faced this last year, but alhamdulillah, I had access to someone to help me work out. So basically, right, is there anything that you can touch on, Masai related to hayd, meaning sorry, istihada? So during istihada, can a woman fast, and how should she distinguish between hayd and istihada? Ji, Apa Sajeda?
So when a woman is on istihada, she has to fast. So she does have to fast. And to distinguish between her periods and her istihada is to look at her normal habit. Any bleeding that has gone above her normal habit over 10 days, that will be considered as istihada. If she bleeds a little, so just say somebody has a habit of 7 days and they bleed for 9 days, then the 2 extra days will still be periods and her habit will have changed. So it all depends on the habit changing as to when she's got her period and when she's got her istihada. Again, everybody's scenario is going to be completely different. So it's best to go through it with somebody qualified so they can guide you on those matters. But generally, a woman on istihada has to fast.
Okay, somebody asked a question, and I'll answer this. Will the full webinar be available? Yes, it will be. The webinar is being recorded. That's the reason why that we're not asking anybody to answer unmute their mics and answer. That's the reason why. Yes, it's going to be available. Hopefully in the next couple of days, it will be then uploaded onto our Jake and Fatah website. So it's not going to be uploaded on YouTube. Let me just clarify that. It's not going to be on YouTube. It's going to be stored in our Dropbox to Jake and Fatawa on our Fatawa website. If anybody wants to access it, there's a password. You get in touch with us, we'll give you the password, and then you can access the recording. So it's not going to be uploaded on YouTube. It's going to be stored on our Jake and Fatawa website. And I've noticed that some of the sisters are already asking certain questions that which the Apas have already addressed. For example, if a woman is breastfeeding, does she have to fast? I mean, Apa Sajeda has already elaborated that in detail. You can just kindly refer to the recording or to the slides. And by the way, just to mention, the slideshows are also going to be available. So you'll be able to have an electronic copy of the slideshows as well. Okay, so there's another question here. I have not had any periods for the last 5 years and kept all my fasts. Only a bit of spotting once or twice a year. But since last month, I have started bleeding again, but there is no routine to this. In Ramadan, can I fast on the days I'm not bleeding, or should I avoid fasting for 10 days once I start bleeding? I hope this makes sense. So this is a question for Apa Sajeda. I hope this question makes sense to you anyway. So I think what she's got irregular pattern bleeding or something. So what would you advise to this woman, to the sister, sorry?
So if there's been 15 days of cleanliness and then you start bleeding, then yes, you should stop fasting, because then that is your period, because there's been 15 days of cleanliness. And then again, it's going to be according to your habit. For 10 days, don't fast. And then after that, start fasting again if you are still bleeding within those 10 days.
Yeah. Okay, and Jazakallah khair. So there's a question from another sister, is how can you distinguish whether spotting during fasting is menstruation or not? I think you've already touched on that, especially if you're not expecting it, e.g. breastfeeding and so on. So I think it's probably the same answer. Is that correct, Mufti Sajida? And should you carry on praying and fasting until you are sure it is period? I'm assuming yes. Apa's already mentioned that, unless Apa Maryam or Apa Sajida, if you want to add something to that. Okay. There's something else. When an older woman is going through menopause and she hasn't been on her periods and she sees blood in Ramadan, will this be classed as hayd? That's an interesting question. And if Apa Sajida would like to answer this.
So now in Islam, a woman is ruled as menopausal at the age of 55 lunar years. So it's 53 solar years and 4 months. So even though you may say that I'm going through my menopause, but if you're not 55 years old, then Islamically it won't be considered as menopause. Now, after the age of 55 lunar years, which is 53 solar years, if you see any vaginal discharge of any color, then it will be considered as istihaza. But there are exceptions to this ruling. So if the color of the blood is black, red, or like a premenopausal period, then the bleeding will be ruled as menstruation if a complete tuhur precedes it and the blood reaches a menstrual minimum of 3 complete days. So basically, if she's bleeding to a similar pattern to how she used to bleed before, it's the same color, and it's been more than 3 days, then it will be considered as period and she won't have to fast.
Yeah, I hope that's clear. Yeah. So just to clarify, Apa mentioned solar years and lunar years. You know, the solar year basically is the normal calendar which we follow, the English calendar, and the lunar year is known as the Islamic calendar. So there's a difference between the two. So there's a couple of years difference. So you can be 53, for example, by the English calendar, but you can end up being 55 Islamically. So that's what Apa just mentioned. Apa Sajida just mentioned. So basically, just remember, it's 53 normal years, and obviously Islamically will be Catholic has 55. Okay. Now there's another question. Again, this is about etikaf. So Apa Sajida, I think a lot of the queries are for you. So secondly, in the rules of doing qadha for etikaf, just to clarify, do you do qadha for the day it broke, or the full 10 days? I think she's already done that. And does it also depend on sunnah nafil itikaf? That's that. If you can also suggest that if a pregnant woman, if she can't fast, if she can't do itikaf, then can she do nafil itikaf as well? So you could just clarify.
So just wanted to clarify one thing. With nafil etikaf, you do not need rosa. So the pregnant woman masla that we were looking at, yes, she can do her nafil etikaf, but she won't be able to do her sunnah etikaf. And the way you do qadha is you don't do qadha for the full 10 days, or you don't do qadha of how many days were left. You only do qadha of the 1 day. So after Maghrib or Maghrib time, sit down in etikaf, and then the next day keep rosa, and then at Maghrib time you finish your etikaf. So it'll be from Maghrib to Maghrib with a rosa.
Chalo, Jazakallah. Apa Maryam, this is a question for you now. So you mentioned toothpaste and mouthwash. Are you allowed to brush your teeth whilst fasting? Is it makruh or mubah? So in other words, I think what the question is trying to ask her, what if, for example, somebody just used a toothbrush with to brush their teeth without using a toothpaste and mouthwash? So is that makruh or not?
So using your toothbrush with nothing on it, that is permissible as you haven't got any substance on the toothpaste. So there's no on the toothbrush, sorry. So there's no difficulty there's no understanding, sorry, that the toothpaste or any toothpaste would actually go down into your throat. However, if you do have toothpaste on your toothbrush, there is a certainty that it may go down the throat and lead to the qualified cavity. In that case, it will break the fast. So advisable, we just say, is do not brush your teeth with toothpaste, as there is a possibility it can lead down to the throat. So if you're using a plain toothbrush with nothing on it, you are allowed to do that during your fast. But to use toothpaste and to use mouthwash, there is a possibility it can lead down to the throat. So it's advisable not to use them.
Yeah, TK. Jazakallah khair. I just want to give you one advice, touch on that, please, if I may, is that obviously with toothpaste, the reason why it is makruh is because, as Apa mentioned, that it can lead to down to the qualified cavity, i.e. go down the throat into the stomach, right? Into the stomach. But however, right, if it's just the mint in the mouth, okay, right, what doesn't go down, then it is makruh, because the whole purpose of fasting is so that we try to avoid triggering our mouth. But if, for example, somebody was to, it also sometimes depends how much toothpaste you use. If somebody was to use a little bit, slight, just like a tiny drop or something, just to clean the teeth and just to remove the dirt from it, then that should be fine also. Okay, now this is another question. Again, this is related to periods as well. That if you finish your period during the day and you continue eating, are you sinful? What's the ruling? Is it wajib to stop eating? I think Apa, I think you've Mufti Sajeda, I think you've already addressed this. Do you want to address this again, or shall we move on?
Yeah, it's already been addressed. It's that you shouldn't be eating, and yes, that person would be sinful.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine then. Okay. Okay. Also, do you stop eating after ghusl? Okay, this is another question for you. So, do you stop eating after ghusl or after your period is finished?
You should stop eating when your period finishes.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Another question, again, this is for Apa Maryam. So when using a deodorant, how do you know that if it's gone down the qualified area, which means obviously down the throat into the stomach? You can taste it in the mouth because of the strong smell, but how do you know that it's reached the throat? So do you want to answer that, please?
Well, if it's tasting it and you could taste it in your mouth, then obviously it wouldn't break the fast. Similarly, as if a woman's cooking food and she tastes something, she could taste it in her mouth. It wouldn't break the fast as long as it hasn't gone down the throat and it hasn't actually reached the stomach and settled there as well. So with the deodorant, if you can taste it in your mouth, it's obviously sort of just like an aerosol, so it won't actually lead down to the throat and settle in the stomach. So that wouldn't break the fast, even if you can taste the deodorant in your mouth. It's similar example to food as well. If you're just tasting food and it's not swallowed, it's not gone down to the stomach and settled there, then it won't break your fast. So similar to deodorants as well, they don't break the fast, even if you can taste them in the mouth as well.
Yeah. Jazakallah. Again, the next question I think Apa Sajeda has already answered. If you, I think there was an example that Apa Sajeda presented, that if you come on your periods 5 minutes before Maghrib, your fast has broken, but you don't want to eat because you might as well eat with your family. Is this sinful? Should you eat something small just to avoid being sinful or not? So do you want to answer that, please?
Yeah, in that one, it's fine because you've only got 5 minutes and you can just eat with the family. You wouldn't be sinful.
Yeah, I think what Apa Sajeda, what she meant is that, you know, if a sister's already on her periods or started her periods, and she's thinking, right, that, you know, for you to not to eat is considered something that's a rewarding in itself, or you consider it as bad for you eating, then in that case, then it's wrong, because a menstruating woman, she cannot she cannot observe a fast, because obviously there's one thing I would like to add here as well, just for clarity, is that even though that if a menstruating woman is supposed to eat, right, then she should not eat in front of everybody, those who are fasting. Yes, because obviously, you know, if a woman is already eating in front of everybody, then it gives the impression, especially in front of the males, if she's giving the impression that she's actually on her periods. So it's advisable that even a menstruating woman, when she eats, when she has a breakfast or lunch or whatever, to make sure that she's not eating in front of other people, where she's eating by herself, like in her room or something like that. Okay. I hope that clears it as well. Now, if someone does not pray Taraweeh at all, to motivate them, should you encourage them to pray 8 rakats, or should you say pray however much you can in a day. Apa Sajeda, would you like to answer this?
Yeah, I would say that pray however much you can pray. So for example, pray 4 rakats today, pray 6 tomorrow, pray 8, pray 10. I would specifically say 8 because then that might give them the habit of 8 and they might just carry that on with the rest of their life.
Okay, that's fine. Again, some of the questions, sisters, Appas have already answered. Like if you vomit unintentionally or you swallow your vomit, does that break your fast? Again, Apa Maryam, would you like to clarify that again?
Yep, so if you vomited unintentionally, then your fast doesn't break. However, if you vomited, purposely, and you know that you vomited, you purposely made the vomit come out, then in that case, your fast would break. And if you swallowed that vomit as well, intentionally, then your fast would break on that case as well.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So just to be clear that the time that where your vomit breaks the fast is if it's a mouthful intentionally. And would you do, okay, what would you do in the case of a nosebleed? The amount of blood swallowed would be unknown. Would it be best to just do qada or not? So Apa Maryam, this is for you.
So if you can genuinely taste that there's more blood when you swallow, then your fast would break in that case. Whoever's mic that is, please can you mute it? Whoever, so if you genuinely feel that the blood that you swallowed is a lot more than the saliva, then in that case your fast would break in that case if it's a nosebleed.
Yeah, sorry, Apa, you just clarify that, please. I think there was some disturbance. Sorry.
Yeah. So if you've had a nosebleed and you feel the blood go down your throat, then your fast would break in that case. However, if you've had a nosebleed and the blood just comes out down from your nose, then the fast would not break in that case.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for that. Apologies for that short disturbance. Just to clarify what is the distance that one must travel to qualify as a musafir? Apa Sajda, would you like to answer that?
Yep, it's 48 miles.
Okay, yeah.
So, you're a musafir as soon as you leave your house, though. So you don't have to have traveled 48 miles. If you know that you're going to travel more than 48 miles, so the minute that you leave your house, you've now become a musafir.
Okay. Jazakallah khair. And just for everyone's information, we have plenty of courses there. We have delivered some webinars and courses which are available on the Jakin Fatah website. One of the courses I delivered in quite detail was the Salah of a traveler. So in there, discuss all of the masail, the ikhtilaf between the madahibs, even this as well. So there's a whole debate around how much mileage qualifies as musafir. Is it 48 miles? Is it 56 miles? Is it 53 miles? Is it 52 and a half? There's so many different opinions. I've addressed all this in my video. So you can simply just go to the website and you could just access my slide notes as well as my recording. So that was something that'd be useful, inshallah. And what about someone who has very irregular bleeding? So, Apa Sajida, I mean, what would you advise to a sister who's got irregular bleeding? I mean, what would be the case?
Again, yeah, if you look at the simple rules of, if you keep this in mind, that has there been a 15-day gap? If there is a 15-day gap and I am now bleeding, then this is my period and I'm going to not fast for 10 days. And then after that, I'll carry on fasting. So again, you'll have to, for every person is going to be really, really different. So you'll have to sit down with someone and work it out.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. One advice I'll give to the sisters is that if what Apa Sajida, what she's just addressing it from the general principle. Okay, she's answering only from the principle. Answers are just principle based. However, every scenario, every situation is different. If you are really struggling with your irregular pattern and it's affecting your salah and it's affecting your fasting, especially the month of Ramadan, it's always advisable to contact a local alim or a scholar, a mufti, or mashallah, we have our mufti apas. Just speak to them. Just speak to them in person. Can I just kindly suggest for the participants to keep their mic switched off, please? Yeah, Jazakallah khair. Yeah, so as I was saying that we have mashallah and mufti apas who are dedicated team to answering your queries. It's best you speak to them in private so that they can address your concerns. Okay. Right. Now, if there is, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to wrap up everything at 4 o'clock because I know, alhamdulillah, we are much on schedule. So we're going to try to wrap up everything at 4 o'clock, inshallah. Okay, because I know it's been 2 hours and it's, mashallah, it's a nice day as well. So I know other people have got other commitments. Okay, so we will try to address all of these questions. So if there is a glass of water that you were drinking from before suhoor end, then suhoor has ended and the glass of water hasn't been finished yet, can you finish that glass of water off? Was it Apa Maryam? Or did you cover this? Do you want to answer
I
that?
did, yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to cover it?
So if the azan has already gone and if you had water in your mouth at that time, you should swallow that water, but the rest of the water which is left in the glass, you shouldn't drink that.
Okay, that's fine. Then how do you do qada of itikaf? So if you got qada of itikaf, and how would you do it? Apa Sajeda, would you like to answer this?
We've already been through that. So on any day of the year, do intention that I'm doing qada at Maghrib time. Then from Maghrib till Maghrib, sit in i'tikaf in one designated area. And if it's qada of a sunnah, then you'll have to do your roza as well. So the next day, keep a roza as well. So it's just one day.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so there's a question that I have a lot of fasts that I missed during pregnancy and breastfeeding. I did not have enough knowledge then. Had I known that I have tried to fast, I have now calculated that I have over 350 days worth of fast outstanding. Subhanallah. I'm hoping, inshallah, that I will fast to them. Will I be allowed to pay kafara fidya instead, or is it more advisable to do qada? So this is a kind of a complex scenario here. Apa Sajeda, if you want to answer this. So the sister who's missed fast in the past due to pregnancy and breastfeeding, and she's got almost 350 days now. So I'm assuming that these days that you've missed it only because of pregnancy and breastfeeding and nothing else. So what would you advise to this sister, Apa?
Paying fidya would not be allowed at the moment. You will have to try and fast because you are able to fast. So you will have to fast. If you do give fidya, it won't be counted because fidya is normally given at a point where somebody is so ill that they know there's no point of return from here. I will never get well enough to keep a fast. So what I would suggest is, why don't you break it down? So over the next 10, 20 years, break it down over the next 10, 20 years, I'm going to keep 15 fasts a year, 2 per month. Inshallah, like that, if you don't look at the really big number and you make a timetable, it should be, inshallah, doable. So even if you do it over 20 years, 25 years, inshallah, it should be okay.
Jazakallah. One also advice I would give to this particular sister is that, throughout the year we have the sunnah fast as well, don't we, right? So if you were to observe a fast on those sunnah days, right, but you make the primary intention of qada and the sunnah fast as a secondary intention, that will also be valid. So we have fasting every Mondays and Thursdays, or fasting 3 days a month, 13, 14, 15 Islamic calendar, fasting on the 10th of Muharram, the 9th of Arafat, so on and so on, and fasting the first 10 days of Zul-Hijjah. All of these moments, occasions that when you're fasting, if you make the first intention as qada, it can't be second, your first intention is qada, and then these sunnah fasts as a secondary intention, that will also be valid. So it is possible. So even though if it seems to be 350 days, it doesn't mean that you have to do it all at once. You can, like as Apa Sajeda mentioned, is you can just spread it out over 10, 15 years or 20 years. You can also include the sunnah fasts as qada, but with the intention of qada first. And then inshallah, you'll get the reward for the other one as well. So I hope that's clear. Islam, does nosebleed break the fast? Thanks in advance. Well, in advance, that's already been answered. Fasting, you mentioned traveling. Your flight is in the afternoon, right? So let's say, so this is interesting about traveling. So you mentioned traveling, your flight is in the afternoon, so you are not a musafir at the time of Subh Sadiq. Should we miss the fast intentionally and then make qada, or will that necessitate a kafara as well? Who's addressing this? Was it Apa Maryam? Was it yours? Was it Apa Sajeda? Who was it?
It was mine. I covered Qadha and Kaffarah.
Yeah, don't you want to answer this, please? So this is about traveling. So basically what it is that the flight is in the afternoon and you are not a musafir at the time yet. Okay, but so the question is that should you miss the fast completely that day and then make qada, or would it necessitate kafara as well if you don't keep the fast at all? So what's the answer?
Ustaz, if I can hand this one back to you, please.
Okay. Apa Sajeda, would you like to answer this?
Yep. So if you have a choice, either you keep the fast or you don't keep the fast. If you don't keep the fast, then you will get, it's not good, but you won't have to do qadha, or not, sorry, you'll have to do qadha, but you won't have to give kafara. But it is better than keeping the fast and then breaking it, if you understand what I mean. So if you know that you're going to find traveling so hard, then from the beginning, again, it's not advised, it's not the best, but then it's the better option than to break the fast.
Yeah. Yeah, so I hope that's clear. So that's a really good point. It's best that if you don't keep the fast at all and make qadha afterwards, rather than just keeping it and then just breaking it as well. So it's better. But even if you do keep it and then you break the fast whilst you're on the aeroplane, because the hours sometimes could be very different, and they may extend your fasting time, and you find it extremely difficult, then you even if you break the fast, is only qadha, there's no kafara. Yes. Okay, regarding using miswak while fasting, if the strings of the remaining are not swallowed, no, it won't be. I think most of these have already been answered. So you mentioned you finished the remaining morsel. Did you mean that the remaining morsel on the plate, or just the food in the mouth, Apa, or just in the hand itself? So you've got like a morsel in the hand itself, for example, or the morsel in the mouth or in the plate. So Apa Maryam, I think, do you want to answer this?
That would be just the remaining morsels in the mouth. You shouldn't be eating any more off the plate or either in your hand.
Yeah. There is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ did mention is that if a person does have a morsel in the hand left, right, and the azan is gone, then he can finish off that morsel. So the idea is that the one or two remaining morsels, whether it's in the mouth or in the hand itself, then that could be finished. But however, doesn't mean to say that you start finishing the entire plate, because otherwise that can potentially lead to you going over time and then fasting. So one example is that I know sometimes people are having hot tea. So people, when they make hot tea, like, desi char and things like that, okay, right, and they leave it until cool off. So by the time they start drinking it and it's cool enough to drink, suhoor's already ended now. And now what people start doing, people start now drinking the tea itself, okay, right? If it's couple of sips, then a couple of sips is fine. But then when you start drinking the whole tea, then it can break the fast, okay? Now, so Assalamu alaikum, is it possible for a woman to come on her period during pregnancy if blood is seen? What if the color of the blood and the time she bleeds differs drastically, as this is menstruation as well? So the question basically is that is it possible for a woman to menstruate while she's pregnant, and do the rules of menstruation apply? Apa Sajeda?
No, it's Islamically it's not possible. So it won't be counted as periods if a pregnant woman bleeds.
Yeah, okay, Jazakallah, which means that a pregnant woman, she still have to pray her salah in the most convenient way possible. And even though she does bleed, then salah will still be valid. She still has to pray salah, but obviously renew the wudu and so on. Okay, what's the ruling about chewing gum whilst fasting? Apa Maryam, would you like to answer this?
It would be disliked in chewing gum because obviously it's leaving a taste in your mouth. So it should be avoided in chewing gum, regardless whether it goes down the throat or not. It should be avoided. And if it was to, there's a possibility that if you're chewing gum, it can lead down into the throat. So in that case, your fast would break. So it should be avoided in chewing gum.
Yeah, Jazakallah, yeah. And but just to add to that though, with the chewing gum, because it has a minty strong taste, when you swallow it with the saliva, because there's a strong minty taste, it can now break the fast. Yeah. But if there's a case that where it does just the mint remains in the mouth and someone just spits it out rather than swallowing it, then it is makruh. That's what Abba meant, just for clarification. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes. I mean, subhanAllah, we've got 27 messages. Allahu Akbar. We've only got about 5 minutes, okay, right? So, okay, can anyone take contraception pills to stop your periods in Ramadan if you fear that so many fasts will build up? That's a good question. Taking contraceptive pills during Ramadan, and I'm assuming obviously this is she's going to take after she'll take after iftar, obviously not during not whilst fasting. So Apa Sajeda, would you like to answer this question? Would you recommend a woman to do that?
It would be allowed. We wouldn't say it's haram, but again, it's not recommended. And if you look at it from a medical perspective, it wouldn't be recommended as well, because then it could change your bleeding pattern and it might cause so many problems later on. So it's better that you just come on your periods naturally, and then again do qadha, even if it's just like one a month, or do a timetable or something like that. Then that would be preferred.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good. This is another question. Most of the questions are just periods. This is one. If you realize that you're on your period after Maghrib, but must have started before Maghrib, do you still need to do qada of the fast, Apa Sajeda?
No, periods start once you've seen and 100% know that you have started your period. And that happens when you see the blood. So no, she will not have to do qada.
So wait, for example, let's say, I just want to add to this. Wait, for example, let's say there's a sister that she's, let's say that she's seen her blood, right? But she knows for definite that, you know what, my periods must have started an hour earlier. But she felt it, but she did not see it though. After an hour, when she went to clean herself, she went to the bathroom or so, then she saw the blood itself. So knowing the fact that she's got this hunch that she must have started an hour early, but she just saw the period. Um, 1 hour later. So would the ruling be this based on the seeing as well, or the feeling that yeah, she must have had it an hour?
It all depends on your yaqeen. So your halat only changes with yaqeen. So if you have yaqeen, not shak, yaqeen that yes, my period started whilst I was fasting at this time, then you should do qada. But if you felt it and then you saw it later, and that's when yaqeen came in, I would still advise that you do qada.
Okay, that's fine. So just for everyone's sake, yaqeen basically means certainty. Okay, if you're certain, yeah. Okay, could you use the quarantine period in hotel during COVID as our itikaf? Yeah, oh, that's interesting question. If yes, if the duration is shortened by the relevant authorities without any warning, what should you do? That's an interesting question. If you're basically in a hotel, so what tends to happen, just to clarify, is that if you're traveling abroad and you come back, then you have to quarantine for about 14 days, I think, a couple of days, 7 or 7 days or so. I don't know what the law is now. We have to quarantine by spending in the hotel. And if it happens to be during Ramadan, and the sister decides that, you know what, why do I just do itikaf instead? In the hotel room, right? Will that be valid or not? Apa Sajida.
Yeah, if she does niyat, then it will be valid.
Yes, okay. And if it's shortened by the relevant authorities without any warning, then what should you do then? I mean,
If
let's
yeah, if you're forced out of the hotel, then that would be a valid reason to leave. Then you could just carry it on at home, or if you can ask them that, can I prolong my stay at the hotel if you're able to afford it, and if you are able to stay on, then you could do that as well.
yeah, okay, that's fine. With regards to Shadda Tilawat, what does this exactly mean? Okay, these questions are related to Salah. We're not going to address these because we want to specifically restrict it to the webinar itself. Mufti Apa Sajida has recommended praying, reading Quran in different rooms of the house. For encouragement, could you tell us okay, we'll have to skip that. I've really had a back problem. Can I pray some rakats for Taraweeh sitting down? Apa Sajida.
Yeah, if you've got a genuine problem and standing up does harm you and it does make the problem worse and it really is genuine, then you would be able to.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's basically, if you got like a back pain and for you to stand is strenuous, then you can sit down and pray Taraweeh Salah. Even if, for example, if you stood up, right, you stood up, you started Taraweeh, then all of a sudden you start experiencing back pain, then you can sit down straight away and continue with the Salah. Okay, you don't need to break your Salah, you can just sit down. Okay, right. If Adhan and calendar times are different for Iftar and Sahri, which one do we refer to? Okay, any of the apples want to answer this?
I'd just recommend follow your local masjid.
Yeah. Yeah, follow your local masjid, okay? So whichever masjid you follow, just make sure you stick to that, yeah? Until what? If someone hasn't eaten yet and they wake up till now, how long? Okay, so that's already been answered, so we don't address that. I just have qada for this Ramadan, this is coming. Can I do 6 Shaban fasts? Apa Maryam, can you answer this? I just have qada of this Ramadan that is coming up. Can I do the 6 Shaban fasts?
Yes, that's fine. You can do the 6 Shaban fast afterwards, as long as your niyyah is not the same of the Qadha fast of Ramadan and the 6 Shaban fast. So you're doing a separate niyyah for two. So you'll do the 6 Shaban fast first if you want, and then you could do the Qadha of your Ramadan afterwards. But we do recommend doing the fard fasts first, the Qadha ones that are fard in Ramadan first, before you start doing any nafil.
Yeah. Okay, Jazakumullah khair. I'm just going to take one final question and that's how we're going to finish off. And the rest of the answers, Again, sisters, you're asking the questions which are already been addressed more or less in the webinar, like can a woman only fast perform itikaf? No, all of these have been addressed. The answer is basically no, right? Now, just final question. Question number 4. It said that you can finish off the in your mouth. Yes, that's already been clarified. So, say Subha Sadiq is 124. You can carry on eating what's in your mouth up until 125. Apa Maryam, you want to answer this? This is question 4, and that's how we're going to end with this.
Yeah, you can carry on eating till 125, but after 125 and whatever's finished in your mouth, that should be finished, and you shouldn't carry on eating anything after that because Subha Sadiq time has started.
Yeah, that's fine. So you got 1 minute concession or maximum just probably 2 minutes, but apart from that, other than that, then no. Just because we cannot do double intention for Qadha fast and the 6 fasts of Shaban. Yeah, you can make double intentions, yes, but just to be clear, I think, is it Shaban or is it Shawwal? I don't think you made it clear. It's not 6 fasts of Shaban, 6 fasts of Shawwal. Which main month of Shaban now, so it's Shawwal, yes. Yes, you can make double intention, but your intention needs to be primarily a Qadha, and then the 6 Shawwal as a secondary intention, okay? I think that's about it, right, really now. So that's about it. I just wanted to now take this opportunity to mention some upcoming courses, webinar courses, webinars this year. Inshallah, in the next one, we've got the Fiqh of Beauty, which is going to be addressed by the 2 Apas as well, jointly presented by 2 Apas again. So we're going to talk about the Fiqh of Zina, the Fiqh of Beauty. So we received a lot of questions related to, makeups or like lip balming, or I've forgotten so many myself. I mean, there's so many other queries related to the beauty. Inshallah, there's going to be a whole webinar addressing that. What's classed as permissible additions, what's classed as taghi, what's classed as altering the natural creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we're going to have a webinar on the Hajj of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So which means is that, during the Hajj season, we're going to have one webinar where we're going to invite an external guest speaker who's going to describe the Hajj of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then there's going to be another one webinar, which is going to be around July, August time, I can't remember, is the Fiqh of Divorce. That's the one that I'm going to be delivering myself. So there's going to be a 2.5 hours solid webinar just on explaining the fiqh of divorce. Unfortunately, because because a lot of the times, many of the webinars, they overemphasize on the fiqh of marriage. There's not much webinars delivered on the fiqh of divorce. So inshallah, we'll be talking about that. I'll be addressing a lot of issues. Then there's going to be another webinar on the social role of the Quran, and then the return of Sayyidina Isa alayhi salatu wasalam. The details and the timings and the dates is all available on our JKN Fatawa website /courses. So if you go to the course page on the JKN Fatawa, all of the webinars and the courses, they're all scheduled by the date. You can then view it there, inshallah. And that's about it, really. And Jazakumullah khair for your participation. We hope that you really, really enjoyed it. Do please send us your feedback. One of our team members, inshallah, will email you all for the feedback. Please do fill in feedback, or you can just simply email us personally your feedback at fatawa@jkn.org.uk. And that's it, really. So Jazakumullah khair for your participation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward the Mufti Apas for their time and effort in delivering this webinar and preparing it as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for your participation. And if you have any further questions, you can post them onto the JKN Fatawa Sisters group, inshallah, or you can post them to email us to jknfatawa.co.uk. So for those of you on the group, JKN Fatawa Sisters group, you can post your questions there, and we leave it at that. Jazakumullahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.